Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday, 15th of March, 2023. And today we do have a special guest, Julio Sena. He's a spiritist communicator, and he does a lot of work on the web, especially for the TV Mundo Maior. So he's a spiritist hard worker, and I would say most of the videos, the talks we see on internet, it's like he has some finger. His fingers is somewhere. He's somewhere over there. Okay, Julio, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Stevan, Charles, Silvia, and
Hi.
everyone. I'm Julio Sena from São Paulo, Brazil, and I'm very happy to be here today for this live transmission about Spiritism. So, thanks for the invitation, and I hope we have a nice conversation today.
Great, thank you, Julio. Okay, Miss Gibbons, how are you, my dear?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a bit cold still. It's gone very cold again, but it's fine. We're surviving. And it's nice to have Julie with us, and especially, and which is a very important theme, actually, the knowledge and to know about spirits when they communicate, what we need to do and what we to be aware of. So it's a very good theme of study for our work today. So, and it's nice to be with Charles and you, Stevan, as usual, this Wednesday. And with all the people who will join us, so it'll be good to see them. Então, boa tarde a todos nesse trabalho, espero que estejam todos bem. Vamos hoje ter um trabalho sobre a identificação dos espíritos, que é um tema bem importante de aprendizado para nós. E bem-vindos a todos, que Deus nos abençoe. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I didn't say the topic today. The topic is how to identify the communicating spirits. Bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir, Steven. Hello, bonjour, bonsoir à tous. Très heureux d'être à nouveau parmi vous ce soir pour parler aujourd'hui de l'identité des esprits. Voilà, quel est le point de vue spirit et les conseils d'Alan Kardec et de ses successeurs sur ce point. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Very happy to be here again with you today. Tonight, we will talk about the identity of spirits, which is an important topic in the spiritist teachings, because when the spirits are communicating through a medium, they do not come with fingerprints or ID cards. So we have to find a way to make sure who they are, and we will try to explain you a little bit more about this today.
Yeah, we cannot do. You're right, Charlie. We cannot take the DNA to do an exam.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me show the video. And let me share my screen. Okay, there we go.
Think about nowadays, we all understand recycling. So our physical body will be recycled one way or the other. What is from nature belongs to nature. So the molecules of the body will break down and make part of nature again. But what we are is our energy. That is transcendent. And that also moves on, doesn't get lost ever. So we go on living in a different place. It's difficult sometimes to imagine where that place is because we're living in this reality and we can't imagine something that's outside this reality. But for sure, since time immemorial, human beings have been receiving messages from those who've passed on saying, we live, we carry on living, and we are those individualities. So through mediumship, through dreams, through many ways, we get news of what happens on the other side. So for sure, we carry on. The difficulty is communication. So if we think in the past, if we went from here to Australia in the 1600s or 1700s, it would take us 2 years to get there. And then if we sent a letter back, the letter would probably get lost. The boat might sink. The letter might never get back. Communication was very poor. But nowadays, you can just go on WhatsApp, internet and Skype or whatever and speak to somebody who's in Australia. So you're sure they're there. In the past, you might not have been sure that they were there because you had no news from them. So I think sometimes passing over is the question of communication, of getting no news from them. And then you think, are they there? But I think as communication technology improves, we'll more and more be sure and be able to communicate in different ways, facilitating. So at the moment, it's still snippets that come through, but the snippets are consistent, saying that we live. And we live according to how we lived on Earth. So we are the same people that carry on the other side.
Okay. So communication. So how to trust, how to identify true communication, how to avoid the traps. As Charlie said, there is no DNA. We cannot identify if that's true or not. And usually when we get a communication, especially from people we share some kind of love, our emotions sometimes bypass the reality, not the reality, bypass the I forgot the word. Let me think here. Bypass our feet on the ground to say, okay, is that true? It is right, it is wrong. What's the elements of this communication? So with this, I would like to start with Julio, since he is our special guest today. And I'd like to start with this little introduction I did, Julio. What we care most when we take the communication spirit from that a person was incarnated and we know that. So when I receive a message from someone very close to me, what we need to be aware, what's the must do and don't do.
Very nice, Stevan. And this question is very important. And sometimes, as you said, our emotions can put us on trouble to deal with this message. So to answer this question, we could, of course, use the Medium's book and the studies that Kardec did, but I want to share a personal story before to introduce this subject today in our conversation. Well, the year was 2018, and my grandpa was in the hospital, the father of my mother. All of my family, of course, was afraid because of his poor health, and we said prayers for him to get better, to go home. And some weeks after my grandpa entered the hospital, my father received a psychography, a message from a spirit. The author was my other grandpa, father of my father, who died 9 years ago. And during this message, my grandpa on the spiritual world said that we should keep saying prayers for my other grandpa. And this part, we could assume that the medium knew beforehand because she knew us. She knew that my other grandpa was in the hospital, that we were afraid because of his poor health, and so on. But what came after was totally unexpected. Well, my grandpa on the spiritual world said that my question soon would be answered and that I should keep faith in Jesus. And I was thinking, how could the medium know that? Because the interesting fact in this story is that I was really questioning myself days before the message. And I was questioning, what should I do to solve a problem in my life? But I haven't talked about it with anyone else. And it didn't stop there. By the end of the message, we saw something quite impressive. During all the message, the handwriting was not my grandpa's. It was another handwriting. Okay. And during the message, he said to us that he was receiving help to give us the message. But in the end of the message, the signature was exactly the same as the one he had when he was alive. Exactly the same. And this was very shocking for us, because all of those signs was the necessary to identify the message from my grandpa. And some of the things I said now in my story is exactly what Kardec in the Medium's book tells us to do. We need to take care to not bother the spirit asking for proofs, but we can analyze the words, the style, the handwriting, the signature, and of course the information that only that person would have. And we could do this in a practical way. It was very interesting for us. We were very happy with this message. Some months later, my grandpa died, the father of my mother. And of course, we stayed saying prayers to him to get well in the spiritual world, and to sometime he could send us some message, or no, we don't want to bother him or they with that. It was very special to us, and I think it's something we can start our conversation today.
Great. Thank you, Julio. Thank you. Yeah, it's important sometimes keep our feet on the ground and understand how and why. And based on this, Charles, what is the greatest difficulty that practical spiritism has in identify a spirit? How to identify, okay, this is a true communication, this is a reliable communication, this is fake news, let's say.
Exactly. You're fully right by using this fake news statement, because there are fake communications and spirits trying to give a signature which is not their one. So, as Giulio already clearly said, the thing is, we should go and analyze the content of the message itself. So this is one of the biggest difficulty and more discussed item of practical spiritism. First, I would say the risk of obsession, which is one risk, and the second risk is to be misled or even cheated by some spirits. So that's why, as I told, they don't come with DNA, with fingerprints, or with ID card or whatever. So the spirits, generally, we cannot see them. So the only way is to, okay, what have they said? What have they written? What have they given? Is it good? Yes or not? Does it go through these famous Socratic filters that I mentioned already several times? Is it true, what's written? Is it good? And is it opportune for this moment? And if the answer to one of these three questions is not clearly yes, we should put the thing aside and wait for confirmations. Or if all the three answers are no, we can withdraw immediately. We can just get rid of it. So that's the way. And Kardec is also using a very nice comparison. If the communication is a very good, very nice, full of love, good advices, and so on, whether it's signed X, Y, or Z, Jesus, or Socrates, or Plato, or whoever, it doesn't mind. Because Kardec is stating, it's in this famous section 24 of the Medium's book, which is only dedicated to this subject today, is that all the good spirits, they are somehow converging into, how can we say that? They are all good, and they are a kind of a uniform perfection, albeit all of them still keep their personality, which is different one from the other. But the message they will give, coming from good spirits, will be good, wherever it's one or the other, they will speak with the same voice, basically. And on the other side, Kardec is also making a very nice comparison. He's saying, when a wine is not good, you can put a very nice bottle, a very nice label with golden written and so on. The wine will not be better because of the label. Okay, so it's exactly this type of procedures that we should apply in mediumship when we are analyzing the communications. And asking for the spirit, give me a proof that it is you who is talking to me, is also not a good way to do it, because sometimes, I mean, if you have some beloved one aside of you, he would be shocked, he may be even shocked by such question. The spirit generally, when they come, as Giulio gave in an example, they come spontaneously with some proofs of identity. And this is of particular importance, for instance, with spirits that we knew closely. And the best example for this is these thousands of letters that Chico Xavier received, giving these communications to mothers and fathers and grandmas and so on, which were absolutely, how to say, desesperados, sorry. Despaired, yes. Desperate because they have lost a son or a husband or whatever. And then when the proof is really coming through Chico Xavier, who didn't even know that these people were coming to visit him that day, it starts like this. And with in each letter, 5, 10, or sometimes more, very concrete, accurate elements of proof, then this cannot be caused by just random answers. It's really something which is giving the proof that the communicating identity, of the identity of the communicating spirit to Chico Xavier. So that's for the communication from people that we knew alive or that died recently and so on. For people who died since a longer time, also it will be difficult. I mean, if you have a communication which is signed, I don't know, Victor Hugo, for instance, if it's just blah blah without style and anything, it's really, you can put in doubt if it was Victor Hugo or not. So this is a way you can make sure. And two things I wanted to say. The first thing is, there has been a study recently to try to identify proof of identity in communications with a very accurate protocol, double-blind, and so on, as the scientific methods of nowadays. And they have selected some mediums which were well known and even indicated, advised by some serious spiritist groups and so on, and also a certain number of people who lost someone and who were looking for proofs of identity. And unfortunately, so this is showing the difficulty of the subject we are treating today. The study concluded negatively that these mediums, albeit they were full of good willing, voluntarily doing this, and advised by the good spiritist groups, they really could not give proof of identity like the one Julio mentioned, or the one that Chico Xavier gave. So this shows that even with the best good willing, if you tell, no, I received the communication, it's coming from your son or whatever, it's a big responsibility, because if how to say, it was not the son, you in fact, instead of helping, you are making the opposite. And the second thing I wanted to mention on this subject, and then I will stop talking, is these advices given by Kardec from mediumship, including how can we make the difference between a good spirit and a bad spirit? What are the signs? He gives several points in one of the questions of the spirit book, of the medium's book. Let me just check which one it is again. Yes, it's item 267, which is extremely interesting. So to make the difference between a good and a bad spirit. And this advice is today, I would say, with all this information that we are getting every day through social media, through press, through whatever, we can apply exactly the same method. The Socratic filter, which is a simplified method of it, we should apply it not only for mediumship communication, we should apply it for maybe each and every information which is reaching us. Because I did not make some statistics, but I'm sure sometimes out of 10 information we receive, 5 are fake or wrong or deformed or exaggerated or whatever. So interestingly, these advices that Kardec gave 160 years ago for mediumship and communication analysis is fully applicable nowadays for everyday information that we are receiving in this high quantity every day, every hour nowadays, with the progress that we have done. So that's what I wanted to say so far.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you. And Ms. Gibbons, we have a good example. For example, I would say Chico Xavier. He started with the letters, the consoling letters, and we also do have we do have a movie. I think is Chico's mom.
Yes, the mothers of Chico Xavier. Yes, the mothers.
Tell this story. And how much importance can we give to the names given by the communicating spirit? Like a medium, I'm psychograph something in that sign, André Luis.
That's a good one. I think, going from what Julio and Charles said, and it's one of the things that we have to be aware, the spirits don't always put their names on things. So, it's very different from the letters that Chico Xavier used to write, because, as Charles pointed out, some of the parents would come. Chico didn't know any of the people, absolutely nobody. And they would come and they would receive a letter. And I was fortunate enough, I was blessed with the opportunity of seeing this actually once when I was visiting Chico, and I saw somebody, a family receiving a message. Many people had received a message but that one was very different because it was a couple. They were from France. They didn't really speak Portuguese. And the message that Chico received, the letter was in French. And the mother had a nickname that a little boy was a son. They lost their son, I think, when he was 17, 18, in a motorcycle accident, I think it was, if I can remember well. And when he was a little child, he couldn't really pronounce his mother's name. So he had he would say her name, but in a different way. And it became like a kind of nickname for his mother because he couldn't say her name. And he wrote that on the letter. And actually, Chico read, because he used to read the letters after he received them. And he read the letter in French. And the only thing, no, because the mother started to cry and the father, they both were in tears, they were really, and they went up there to talk to him and he gave the letter. And that was a confirmation because, these people had come all the way from France, got there, received this letter in French with the details of the nickname that the little boy had given to his mother when he was a child. So there was no way, absolutely no way, that anybody else could have given that letter. And they were thanking him and everything. And, they were sitting there. I remember they were holding this letter, the mother and the father holding this letter together. They were embracing and the tears just coming down their faces. And they were so happy and joyful. It was a really good trip. So there was no way that it was a lie. It was true. And every single letter that she received had something personal to that person. And I think as well, but this is a very different kind of work. Chico Xavier was above absolutely any idea that he would in any way be fraudulent. He was absolutely and completely trustworthy. And there are many mediums who are as well. But I think we need to be careful with the kind of message we receive. And it's basically things, spirits do not change when they go to the spiritual world from the way they were here on earth. It's so that people will give you advice, will give good things. Good people will give advice, will do things, and they will not tell anybody about it. And the same thing in the spiritual world. Very rarely the spirit will say their names. We have if you think about the amount of work that is in the spirit's book, the medium's book, the gospel and everything, there are very few names. Very, very few names that were given. But for the codification, they had to give names of some of the spirits that were communicated to give authenticity to the work. But mostly they don't. And I think what we have to go by is for what the person, what the spirit is saying, that's the message is conducive with the kind of the way the person spoke, or the way a spirit of that caliber would speak, or is it good? Is it benevolent? Is it caring? Is it intelligent? But in all these things you need to measure, because say a spirit can be very, very intelligent, but morally he's not he's not very high, so he can dupe people. So we needed to go by the content of the message mostly, rather than whatever name is being said there. In certain circumstances, yes, the spirit will give the name, but it might also not be the name may not be, say for instance, an example that's in the medium's book. They say it's the spirit of Paul the apostle. But probably it's not Paul the apostle giving the message, but a spirit of the same level as he was giving the message. So sometimes it happens because they are in their collective, they are in the same spiritual level. Although the spirit is like Paul, he's giving the message rather than Paul, because the spirits are ubiquitous, they can spread out. But I think mostly for message that we ourselves would receive, generally the content should be what is the language, is the way, is the caring, is the advice properly given, and we have to measure those things and what kind of effect that has on us, as well, the kind of feeling that the words that have been written or being given gives to us. All this is a little way of measuring what it is, because there is another thing as well that's important. Say, for instance, most generally, a spirit, especially if someone we know, a spirit of a mother, say, for instance, wants to give a message to their family, to her family, but the vibration of the mother, the spirit of the mother, and the medium does not go together. They not sort of tally. So what happens is the mother may pass the message to someone who will pass to the medium. And sometimes the message gets a little bit, oh no, it's not there. But these things as well, it happens. Maybe Julio or Charles can, maybe get in there as well. We give some more explanation about this. So we need to be very careful the message, who it is, but also we can't dismiss everything because it's not exactly the way the person used to speak, because of this difficulty of the vibrations of the medium not being the same as the spirit. So they will ask somebody else to pass, like, I'll tell you something to tell somebody else, if you see what I mean. So it's not exactly how I would say it, because you would use your own words. And sometimes it happens as well. So you can't dismiss things just out of hand, just because it's not exactly something. But mostly when we're dealing with high spirits, are giving names that are very important, we have to be very aware of that. And the contents of the messages really is the measure that we take to judge anything, any message from the spiritual world. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. Yeah, hello, Camille. Good to have you here. Camille wrote here, it's interesting that a device Silvia is giving can be applied to interacting with incarnate people too. Okay. Okay, thank you, Camille.
I think that, sorry, I think one thing to remember is that we are always spirits. We are incarnate on this planet, on Earth now, but basically we're spirit. And once we lose a physical body, we go back to being spirit again, rather than an incarnate one. So, we're all the same and all alike.
Yeah. And Julio, you have a lot of stories, you have a lot of facts to tell us. Do you have an example how to be assured when we are getting a message from a good or not good spirit?
Yeah, for sure, Stevan. And I can use the commentary of Camille telling us that the advice Silvia is given can be applied to interact with incarnated people too. And to answer this question, I would like to give a modern example. I can say that. Well, let's talk about WhatsApp. Nowadays, almost everyone that have a smartphone uses WhatsApp or Telegram, the most popular chat apps. So we're going to talk about WhatsApp or Telegram. And maybe you and the people you know are part of WhatsApp or Telegram groups, right? I think everyone here, Stevan, Charles, Silvia, and myself, Camille, Ruben, who is here too.
Hello, Ruben.
We're all part of WhatsApp or Telegram groups. Okay, cool. So let's assume that you don't know everyone in this group. This could happen. Sooner or later, someone is going to send a message and probably you will read it. But I ask you now, how could you say that this person is a polite and a good person? How could you know that the message sent has a positive action? These are questions that you can ask yourself in this example, but also are questions that you could use to be sure that a spiritual message comes from a good and superior spirit. This is a modern example, but in the Medium's book, that's exactly how Kardec and the spirits guide us in the task of understanding the evolutionary level of the message and the communicating spirits. By their language, by the style of the message, and thoughts shared, and other signs. As Kardec says in the Medium's book, it may be given as an invariable rule, and one without exception, that the language of the spirits is always in accordance with the degree of their elevation. Well, that's true for our WhatsApp groups too. We can say that, and we can use the list Charles mentioned that Kardec and the spirits gave us in the Medium's book. A lot of points, tips to assume that message is a good message and it comes from a good and a superior spirit.
Thanks, Julio. And Charles, we have in the Spiritist magazine a lot of examples when Kardec was evoking spirits. But sometimes he used to evoke spirits from people who you even incarnated. Like I don't recall which year, but that is the example when he incarnated a spirit of a member of the group who was in a boat traveling, I think, to South Africa. How to make sure we are evoking the right spirit, because anyone can come and say, hey, I am Monsieur, Madame, whatever, and start to give the message. And why do you think this is not any longer the practice we do now?
Yeah, I mean, also it's true that today we generally are not evoking, or in other words, calling a specific spirit. And when we look carefully, Kardec also did evoke spirits only with previous precaution. He was simply asking to the spiritual mentor of the group, Saint Louis or whoever, can we evoke or call the spirit of X, Y, or Z? And then Saint Louis was responding yes or no. And if Saint Louis was responding no, Kardec did not evoke that spirit, because so that's one thing. Because if for a spirit to be able to come, several conditions needs to be present. First, the spirit must be willing to come. Second, he must be allowed to come. Third, he must be capable to come. For instance, if he's awake driving a car, he cannot come when you evoke him, or it would, even if you insist, could be dangerous, can get an accident. Just to give some examples. And the fourth condition, is he must have the necessary fit or affinity, fluidic affinity, in order to be able to communicate through one or the other of the mediums which are present in the meeting. So you see, there are a lot of conditions. So we do not know all these situations and answer to the conditions, but the spiritual mentors, they do. So that's the first precaution. He was really asking, can we evoke that spirit? And generally the answer was yes, and by the way, he's already here. Okay, because the spirits also, they can see what you are programming, see the intentions you had, and they get also prepared on the other side in order to answer as far as it is possible to the purpose of the study you are doing. Okay, and indeed, Kardec wanted, together with some colleague from the society, I don't remember exactly to which country he was traveling, but this person who was known by Kardec asked him, yes, I'm willing that you evoke me when I'm sleeping, so to make to show the evidence that living spirits can also communicate through a medium. And another case that I remember was the case of Miss Indermühle, who was living in Bern in Switzerland, who was ill. She had even she was somehow disabled, and she could communicate in Paris, whilst his brother was presentially in Paris during that meeting. So Kardec, through this, also showing some proof, some evidences that the spirit gave in order to prove his identity. So that was used by Kardec in order to show that we are incarnated spirit. I don't know if Silvia told it already. And as such, when we are sleeping, when our spirit is get a little bit freed from our physical body, he can, of course, travel and go and communicate through a medium like the discarnated spirit can. Okay, so it does not change fundamentally the question of having this need to prove the identity. Also, not all the other principles that have been presented by Giulio and Silvia so far are, of course, also fully applying.
Thanks, Charles. Thank you. Now a question for everyone. We can say that at the Kardec time, we had a message being psychographed, and let's say with Chico and Divaldo, we are more concentrated in psychographed messages, but how is the life in the spiritual world? What do you think? We are walking to which part now in terms of communication? How it's gonna be? This is gonna be through talks, through even books, but how this communication will affect perhaps our generation, the next generation. So let's start with Miss Gibbons. Ladies first.
Oh, I thought you were asking Julie.
Yeah, because the message is for everybody. So
For everyone. No, yes.
Yeah.
Well, the question is how do we know how they will communicate? I think one of the things that Charles said, is the spirit willing to become? Is he allowed to? Because sometimes I think one of the things we have to be aware of is that the spirits may not want to come give us a message. Sometimes they are not spiritually able to give a message. I'm not sure if I'm actually answering the question, because I'm thinking there's so many different things that I could say to answer. So I think I pass on to Julio now. I think, and then because I keep having so many different answers in my
Yeah,
head.
Julie, did you get my point? I'm just saying,
I think so.
time of Kardec, it was more instructions to ourselves.
Yeah.
With Chico and Divaldo and Ivone Pereira do Amaral, it's how is the life in the spiritual world? How is the life, the interaction between the incarnated and discarnated world? In your opinion, what's the next?
Yeah, let me think. Well, in my opinion, we are living in a communicate era. So I think that this will happen with us. Not only the spirits, not only the message from the spirits, and not only about the spiritual world, but a collaborative world, a collaborative work, it's better to say. We can work together with the spirits and use this connection to heal the world we live, to lead us to a regeneration world, to another level. So I think that now we don't have many mediums who receive messages as Chico received, as Givaldo and other mediums. But we have a lot of people. I don't know if you have this feeling, this sensation, this inspiration that we are not alone. That sometimes, like now, we are here talking, all of us four here, and the people who's watching us, and we are not alone. We are surrounded by spirits who is working with us with ideas, thoughts, reflections, and words and phrases and connections between the subjects and the answers and the spiritism. So I think we are living a communicating era, and we are going to a collaborative world that together with the spiritual world we can bring here now a better place to live, not only for us but to the next generations too, that sometime will be us here.
Yeah, but I think that there are books are still being written. There are still mediums writing books and things. But what I find is that some of the books that are coming out is, we need to be very careful, I think, with what we're reading, because now there are so many things being more personal, people writing things. So it's very difficult to judge things as well, isn't it, Julio? But I think there'll be messages coming through. But I think the point you're making, I was thinking about that. It was like, but I kept thinking about white noises. But of course, it will not be in the form of white noises, because our communication now is becoming more and more and more sophisticated. So I think probably we'll be able to communicate to the spirits, to the equipment that we have, which is interesting because I remember once watching a program on BBC about spiritualism and technology. And the interesting point that they were making was that Baird invented the television because he was trying to get a machine that could bring images from the spiritual world. That Marconi was working, trying to have communications from the spiritual world, and he was invented the radio. And now we are seeing more and more the technology, you can hear voices, what they called white noises now, they're becoming more and more purified. They're voices from the spirit through the phones. And now we have, with the technology that we have now with satellites, we have all these vibrations going, isn't it, everywhere, so you can cross. And we're having, I think, eventually, probably the message will come directly to us. But although I still think that a work of a greater meaning maybe will still come through a medium who is dedicated, who is, dedicated to the work to the extent that they will be there to receive the books and things. But I think I agree with you, Julio, that maybe now through the technology it'll be easier for us to communicate directly. And another thing I think as well is because nowadays we have cameras everywhere. Mm-hmm. There is a program here in England on the telly about people sitting down their homes watching the telly, and suddenly the remote control jumps out of from the desk to the table in front of it to the other side of the room, or they are in the kitchen or something, because they have cameras everywhere before burglars and stuff. But they see the chair moving or things moving, and we have this people filming from their own homes. So it's beginning to be more and more open, this idea of spirits communicating, just for the burglars alarm, the burglar alarms, showing every part of their rooms and everything. So I think it'll be part of it, but I think there will still be books and things of a greater meaning will continue. Maybe, sorry, Charles, give you a chance now.
No. It's just building on what you and Julio just said. If we go to the root again, what is the purpose of the mediumship, mediumistic communications? First purpose is to learn. But of course, if you ask now, okay, let's do a mediumship meeting and let's make questions to the spirit. If you ask, for instance, as a question, what is God? A good spirit will answer, please refer to Spirit's book, question number 1, So this happened to us already. Please read the books before you come with questions, okay? So nowadays, we still, of course, have a lot of things to learn because science has progressed since Kardec, because several points were not completely covered by Kardec, because at that time maybe we did not have enough capacity or sufficient elements to understand the things. And indeed, the communication from Chico Xavier, for instance, describing a little bit more what's happening in the spiritual world is also somehow for learning. Albeit here, I think sometimes it goes a little bit too far. I recently read a book which is called, very popular book in Brazil, Violet on the Window. I don't know if it exists in English. And there I think it goes a little bit too far, explaining because in the spirit world we are eating, then we must go to the toilets and I need to take a shower and so on. I think, well, okay, it's popular, but for me it goes a little bit too far. The book is indeed a little bit more interesting when describing what happens during the mediumistic meetings of the group of her father, okay? But just to see. Then the second purpose, to learn, it's legitimate. The second purpose is to give the proof of the existence and survival of the soul. So these are the proof of identities that we just developed. When you have the example of Julio or some of the letters of Chico Xavier, people which are moving, and receiving a proof of identity of the loved one that they lost, these people generally are changed for the rest of their life. So this is, of course, one also of the main purpose of mediumship. And the third main purpose of mediumship is to assist, also to help. Look how many materialist people we have on the earth, people who do not believe in anything or who are completely blind, focused only on material stuff. And then of a sudden they die one day and they are completely lost on the other side. And you have thousands, millions of such spirits on the other side. And one of the purpose of the mediumship is exactly also to try to help all these entities which are lost on the other side. Okay, so nowadays, I think from these three goals, which were the one during Kardec's time already, they did not change. What is changing is our level of comprehension. And for instance, there are very interesting questions now, about the pineal gland, about the phenomenon of life, about epigenetics, about the property of the matter, also conceptualizing what is this semi-matter, which is from which our spiritual body is composed, and things like this. These are questions that I would advise researchers which are totally legitimate for going to the spirits and asking them some hints, in the same way Kardec did it with the concepts of science, which was from his time.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And it's about time. So, you want to say something?
Science. No, I was just thinking that science now will take over, I think, because even in the hardcore science now, there are things that scientists, they have to accept that there is dark energy, dark matter without seeing it. They have concepts of quantum and all the divisions that there exist, and everything is theoretical. Everything is theoretical. So that that hard thing they said, no, you have to prove, and this exists because you can see it, you can touch it. All these concepts are very, very quickly, if not already, completely being surpassed. Now we already working in terms of what is there, what can be discovered, because we don't see, we don't smell, we cannot touch. And I think this is part as well of the advance of science, that we eventually prove the spiritual world much more than anything so far can do. And of course, even mediumship, I feel that mediums will change. I think the intercommunication between the two worlds will become easier. More people will be able to deal. Because at the moment, because we are still so close with materialism, we cannot accept the other world. It gets confusing. People who have very strong clairvoyance and everything, they really suffer. So as we progress as humans as well, as we become more evolved, understand more, science will find these two ways, and the communication will be one-to-one, I think, directly. Which is already, isn't it? It is already. It's just that we don't quite always accept what we're feeling or what we're seeing, what we see. I have times that I saw things and I said, no, I can't. And I kept closing my eyes, then I would see even better. But, that kind of thing. We are having to get prepared to do that. Lovely.
Thank you, my dear. Yeah. Camille just put it here. I think in times where meditation looking in is becoming popular, there is more chance than ever that we will listen more and learn how to discern our voice that have always been there. Thank you, Camille. Thank you. Okay. I think we don't have any other message. That's it. Okay. Let me go to the quick announcements. So next week, Allan Kardec speaking with Leon Centres. So perhaps we're talking about here the trip in 1862. Great. So it's 22nd of March at 9 p.m. London time. I need to fix here because it will be 5 p.m. US time, not 4. Okay, so if you are interested in spiritist psychology studies, please contact our friend Fabrício Assunção, and he will give you the details about this course, this study in terms of spiritist psychology. On the 2nd of April, our friend Flavio Zanetti will talk about Gabriel Delan, and the topic is spiritist phenomena. So please join me to welcome Flavio. In this year, we are concentrating our efforts in the works done by Gabriel Delan. Soon we will have the World Spiritist Month. So the topic of this year is the spirit of peace in the 21st century. So in the upcoming days, I will give you more details. Unfortunately, the Children and Youth Education Summit has been canceled, and I will keep you posted if something come up in a near future. Every Saturday, we do have the Mediums book study with Guilherme Dias, Munir Gariba, and Charles. It takes place online. The study is 10:30 a.m. And the Zoom room details, it's on your screen. Also, every Monday, Bonnie Paris give a study about the book Astral City, which is not solar. And every fortnight on Tuesdays, Rafael Caldas and Faye Waddington had a show, Conversations on Mediumship, 8:30 p.m. UK time. And this is it for now. I want you to say thank you, Julio. Thank you for your examples, for sharing your story about your grandpa. So thank you for being here with us, to accept the invitation to stay along with us during this night for us, afternoon for you.
Thanks everyone for the opportunity to be here and talk about this subject. It was a great moment for me, and I hope it was for those who accompanied us too. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you. Merci
Silvia.
beaucoup.
Thank you. Good night.
Camille. Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, Ruben, and all friends who are with us here. Okay. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All the best.